tech startups that have been funded. The amount of inflow towards young company formation is only going up. As you can see in this chart, the number was about 20 billion 5 years back in 2016. And just this year, and the year is not even fully over, in 2021, more than 60 billion has already been invested in young startups, technology or otherwise. And we do believe that this trend will likely continue at a rapid pace going forward. Um, Not only large amounts of dollars are coming into the economy, and these companies are able to attract marquee investors from all over the world. We also see very strong new company formation. So it's just not that the old um, or the big well-known names like maybe I'm sure you're familiar with the large names like Zomato, Swiggy, and Paytm, some of them, but even the young company formation is very strong. So if you see the bubbles below the slide, in fact, in 2021, the highest percentage, seed per Series A investment is 38%, which is highest it's ever been, which goes to show that a lot of new companies are getting formed at younger stages to propagate new business models and take care of and go after new business opportunities, which is really encouraging from our perspective as we see a lot of innovation um, coming into the ecosystem. Okay, going to the next slide. Um, and I'm sure you've heard of this. We've recently witnessed over the last 6 months a number of IPOs at very high valuations. Now, granted, the valuations could be a little frothy, but it just goes to show the faith both domestic and global investors have in the quality of companies being formed. Not only companies are getting listed in India, as several of these names that you're very familiar with, we also have seen Indian companies now list on NASDAQ. So Freshworks and PubMatic with 2 IPOs this year, and we know that many others are likely to go public over the next few years, many of which are actually in Investors portfolio. And so we will see a continued trend where Indian companies will continue to go attract attention and dollars from not only investors on Indian stock exchange, but also on global stock exchange, where investors have option to invest in many other kinds of companies from all over the world. We see that as a really encouraging trend, actually. Okay. The next slide. Yeah. And this is a really interesting slide that I found while doing research for this presentation. Uh, what was surprising is now a large number of founders that are coming today and forming companies are experienced founders. They've actually scaled some of the businesses, technology businesses over the last 10 to 15 years. And so the quality of founders that are coming, quality of entrepreneurs that we see across the ecosystem is improving with every passing year. So now we have more than 250, 300 startups that have been created by employees of very high performing companies like Zoho, Freshworks, Stoa, Innovation, Mindtech, Stacks, and many others. So these founders who've already seen many of their previous companies where they were employees scale very rapidly, and they know how to essentially take a young idea, a fresh idea, and scale very rapidly, both in India and globally. This sort of know-how to scale startups and the management capability was not available 10 years back. And we see that as a highly encouraging trend because these founders tend to make far less mistakes. They're much more savvy, they're much more ambitious, and they're thinking global from day one. And this we see as a very encouraging trend that the quality of companies that are getting formed today is likely to be far higher than the quality of companies that got formed over the last 10 years. So this is a great leading indicator of high quality company formation. Okay, going to the next slide. And as a result of that, as many would have experienced or heard or read in media that many of the Indian startups are copies of Western models. There is an Uber for India, there is a TikTok for India, there is a Twitter for India, and so on and so forth. And while that's true, we've seen that that's a natural progression across ecosystems, startup ecosystems all over the world. The first few startups that came up in other geographies as well were very much inspired by what happened globally. But what we see now in parallel is also new business models that never existed anywhere else in the world coming out of India. So Postman is basically the API collaboration tool for developers for all over the world. Innovator, we know, is a leading healthcare platform in the US. Freshworks is the leading sort of customer support software for SMBs and mid-market companies around the world. Urban Clap, which is a um, home services business, is expanding rapidly in many Southeast Asian, Australian, and other geographies. So these are companies for which no good parallels exist around the world, but they're getting formed for the first time and not only being successful with Indian customers, but very successful with global customers. So this again we see as a very dramatic change and something that's accelerating with every passing day and a month. And we see this as a very encouraging trend for Indian startup ecosystem. Okay. And some of the things that we think will happen over the next few years is traditional companies will also realize that more and more customers are interacting with, more and more companies are interacting with customers or other companies through a tech interface, a digital overlay, and they will feel a need to digitize very quickly. And we're already seeing some trends of that. We have many portfolio companies, any investment companies in our portfolio that take advantage of that trend. Like we discussed on the previous slide, we see more and more global products and services coming out of India. And companies in India are not only now building for India, but for the world. And given the fantastic company creation, we do believe that there will be strong funding momentum in Indian startups over the next 5 to 10 years. Um, the next slide, I think the role, for example, that we see, for example, PNP and for other ecosystem partners is helping sort of the more traditional or legacy companies bridge the digital gap, because many of these companies are formed 15, 20, 30 years back, and they may not have the modern data or modern technology infrastructure in those companies. But there are many startups that are coming up that are enabling these traditional companies to actually be more digitally savvy. And we have several companies in our investment portfolio. For example, Credgenics is the leading collection software for banks. So it basically digitizes the bank's collection processes and brings them to sort of the modern ages using AI and ML. Digio is another company that we're aware, which basically helps with onboarding, KYC, digital signatures for banks, for capital market trading companies, for example. Ace Turtle is a good example of a software company that's helping traditional retail, offline retail, build omni-channel capabilities. Skit and Yellow are two companies that are helping automate customer support functions across all traditional industries using AI and ML. So we see a large role for startups to not only build new markets, but also help traditional companies take advantage of the digital and AI ML capabilities. And that's where we feel like PNP would play a huge role in bridging that gap. And we're very excited about that. I think those are some of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I don't have any other slides, but happy to take any questions if we have time, but really enjoyed speaking with you.
It's a great presentation, Rishit. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Yeah. So it was a lot of information. First thing, it's like fantastic information, and it's very encouraging to get into this space. A lot of people are watching you, and I think this really encourages the companies who are out there on the conference call to get into this open innovation platform and do something, because there's a lot of opportunity here, and that's what your presentation really shows. And we'd be glad if you can share that presentation. We would like to see some of those. I think a lot of the important information we would like to share with some of the people who are not there on this call as well, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. More than happy to do it. I'll send across copy after the webinar, but
absolutely. And we also have, MSR, who is the CEO of T-Hub. He's also there, and I think this is sweet music to his ears as well. We'd all get together on this and try to see what best we could do on this platform that Plug and Play has established here. Thank you once again, Rishit. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to invite our Principal Secretary, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, IAS, to deliver the closing comments and what the state has to offer to this platform and what we see as future for us here with Plug and Play coming in.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amar. Greetings to folks from Plug and Play, Saeed, Sasha, Soban, Hana. Greetings to all the dignitaries who are here in this room. Greetings to all the participants. It's a matter of great happiness for all of us to welcome Plug and Play here to Hyderabad. First of all, I would like to convey the greetings of our Minister, Mr. K.T. Ramarao. He was extremely excited about this development and personally wanted to be present, but at the very last minute, yesterday our Chief Minister decided to make a sudden trip to the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu and asked the minister to accompany him. But all the same, he's delighted that Plug and Play is now starting their footprint in India, and they have chosen Telangana and Hyderabad to create their first Indian office. We would like to run through a very quick short presentation to explain about the overall innovation ecosystem in our state, in our city, and this will be of tremendous assurance to the folks at Plug and Play that you have chosen the right gateway to India by looking at Hyderabad. So let's run through this short presentation. Next one, please. Telangana, as you would have figured out by now, is the youngest Indian state. This state was created 7.5 years ago, and normally, if you look at the earlier experience of creation of new states, the last time new states were created was in 2001, and typically, if you look at how those new states have performed, 20 years have gone by, you will notice that they start reaching some level of economic growth, economic dynamism, typically in their 15th year, 16th year, and so on. So typically it takes more than a decade and a half for them to start getting counted or start getting reckoned as a significant state or a serious state. But what Telangana has been able to achieve in 7 years is mind-boggling. I mean, people who understand Indian economy, who have studied Indian economy very, very deeply, even they find this to be a marvelous story. How much economic growth and buoyancy Telangana was able to achieve within, let us say, 3 years of its existence, 5 years of its existence, 7 years of its existence. It has now become one of the top performing states in terms of our contribution to the Indian economy. You can see lots of numbers on this slide. In fact, we always feel very proud to show or to tell that while we could be the, let us say, the 11th largest state in terms of size, the 13th largest state in terms of population, but when it comes to the contribution to the economy, to the per capita income, to the GDP or the GDP growth, we are always in the top 3, 4 or so. So in that sense, we are punching way, way above our weight. Next one, please. And of course, all that has been possible because of a very clear vision, a very strong direction on what should be the flagship areas where the government should intervene, what should be the role of the private sector, what kind of enablement is required of the startups, of young entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. And because of the overall congenial investment climate, Hyderabad and Telangana today have become the go-to destination for some of the most marquee names in different verticals. As you can see on this slide, we are home to some of the topmost tech companies. In fact, this statistic will really make you wonder. Hyderabad today houses the second largest campuses of the 5 most valued companies in the world, and 5 most valued tech companies in the world, and you can see their logos on this slide. We are also very strong in BFSI. We are the national hub of the life sciences industry. Similarly, for aerospace and defense, the who's who of the world are present here, and the same is true of automotive, technology service providers. We have run out of space on this chart, otherwise we would have shown to you what kind of progress we have made, let us say, in the electronics industry, in the food processing industry, in the textiles industry, and so on and so forth. And the list is not confined just to the domestic players. We attract investments left, right, and center. Let us say large number of American companies are present here. We have a rich presence of European companies, companies from Japan, from Korea, from Taiwan, from China, from Middle East. I mean, the who's who of the world are present here. And the amazing thing to share with you is that many, in fact, quite a large number of them, having discovered India through Hyderabad, they have started ramping up their presence in phenomenal ways. So many of them have reinvested, have brought their third investments, fourth investments. So there's no stopping to the flow of investments that comes to the city of Hyderabad and to the state of Telangana. Next one, please. One of the main reasons why this happens is because of the high quality talent that we are able to provide to the industry. And uh, as this chart shows, there are some of the top class educational institutions, R&D institutions here, but we have also designed programs and a platform in such a way that all these academic institutions, R&D institutions are extremely sensitive to the needs of the industry. See, this is not very true of many other comparable Indian cities. We get this feedback quite often. I don't want to name any city or run down any city, but we do hear this feedback that there could be great institutions elsewhere as well, but many of them or most of them continue to do their own siloed academic work or research work. They don't really interact with the industry. They are not concerned about what the skill sets needed in the industry are. But things are very different in our state. Every academic institution has a very deep connect with the industry. In fact, members of the industry serve on their boards, on their governing councils. There's a very easy system of flow of information on feedback, etc. And in fact, many industries commend us for our ability to provide talent which can be deployed on live projects right from day one. So this is another advantage of investing in Telangana, that you can hit the ground running right on day one. And as I said, in many other comparable states, companies actually spend anything between 3 months to 6 months to 9 months in reorienting, retraining, and stuff like that. So in Telangana, we have successfully been able to bring that wait period literally to zero. Next one, please. We also, next slide, please. We also have a very strong value proposition on infrastructure. Hyderabad is rated as the best Indian city in terms of quality of living. In fact, there is a global rating agency called Mercer. They rank all the cities of the world, all the major cities of the world, that is, in terms of the quality of living. And of course, I can admit this, that Indian cities come fairly late in that list. But the first Indian city to make it on that list is Hyderabad. And this has been happening for the past 6 years, year after year after year. We are considered to be a city which has the best traffic speeds. There is no congestion, affordability. In the earlier slide, I spoke about the quality of talent, but I forgot to mention that the talent is also extremely affordable. Again, if you look at the other comparable cities, you may be paying 30% more, 40% more to the same quality of talent, which you get at a lower cost in Hyderabad. And the third important thing about the talent is that the attrition rates are also some of the lowest. In fact, we have data to show that, again, I don't want to name any particular city, but eventually it happens in the technology world in India that the choices eventually boil down between a Bangalore and a Hyderabad. And I can now tell you that the attrition rates in Bangalore typically are 12% to 14%, while they are just about 3% to 4% in Hyderabad. The same quality talent, the same organizational culture, same salaries, everything is the same. Companies there lose 12% people, while they lose just about 3 to 4% people here. So affordability is there for the real estate as well. The social infrastructure in terms of housing, in terms of schools, in terms of healthcare facilities, the ways of connectivity. In fact, the Hyderabad airport was one of the first private airports to have been set up in the country and wins awards regularly for being one of the best airports in their 10 million passenger category. Hyderabad also is a very nice city in terms of its heritage, its culture. So it offers people of different tastes, different kinds of recreations, multiple opportunities to participate in the social life, cultural life here. Next one, next slide, please. And we are very happy that Plug and Play has chosen Hyderabad, because in the last 7 years, we have also taken lots of steps to put together a very meticulously planned startup ecosystem. See, we all know that Silicon Valley is the gold standard when it comes to the startup ecosystem. And multiple governments across the globe have tried to emulate what happens in the Silicon Valley with spectacular failures. But I can share this with you that in Hyderabad, in Telangana, our government also have embarked on trying to replicate the best elements of Silicon Valley here, and our success rate is very, very strong. Like in the Silicon Valley, where top academic institutions like Stanford, Berkeley, Caltech, etc., support the startup world. In fact, they were one of the some of the foundational reasons for the startup ecosystem getting so strong. The same is true of Hyderabad as well. Some of the best academic institutions here, like the IIT, the Triple IT, the Indian School of Business, the National Law School, all of these work together with the government to support startups. We have created amazing institutions. You can see some of them mentioned on this slide. T-Hub is country's largest innovation ecosystem, which combines an incubator, an accelerator, and also a funding conduit. VHub, which you see on the right of this slide, is country's first incubator dedicated exclusively to women entrepreneurs. T-Works is again something which is first of its kind. It is a large incubator, possibly the largest in the country, which is built on the lines of, let us say, maker space. It offers all kinds of prototyping facilities for hardware startups. And we also know that in India, while Hyderabad is a big city, there are similar other large metropolitan cities, but a lot of talent is available in smaller towns, even in villages. We typically tend to disregard all that, but in Telangana, we are also very conscious of the fact that talent is available aplenty, but it requires a particular eye and a particular mechanism to really refine them and bring them to the fore. So we have created a dedicated institution for that, which is called the Telangana State Innovation Cell. And for the last 4 or 5 years, they have done amazing programs to pull up some of the best talented people who otherwise would have been lost in the kind of commonness of a rural scenario or a rural life. So I'm very sure that Plug and Play will enrich the startup ecosystem that is available here. We have close to 6,600 plus startups in Hyderabad today. In fact, I remember 7 years ago when we had embarked on this journey of trying to recreate a Silicon Valley here, we had just 200 startups and 2 incubators. And as I mentioned, there are 6,600 plus startups in Hyderabad today, and close to 75 incubators, stroke accelerators, stroke co-working space. I can't imagine any other city in the world where the growth in terms of the quality and quantity is so phenomenal. And I'm very sure that Plug and Play will be able to fill some of the small gaps which still remain here. For instance, Mamta spoke about the opportunity to scale up. While there is agility in startups, but how quick can they scale up? What kind of corporate support do they get? We also are looking at possibilities of providing an international platform to some promising and bright startups from Hyderabad. If they have a product or solution which can potentially work well in other geographies, like let us say the US or Europe or elsewhere, how can that conduit be provided? So we look at Plug and Play for filling some of these critical gaps in the startup landscape of Hyderabad. Next one, please. And we are very conscious of the fact that the pace of digitalization, particularly in the post-pandemic era, is going to be accelerated like never before. Fortunately, without even being aware that a pandemic is on the horizon, we have taken some early steps 4 or 5 years ago, which are going to stand us in very good stead. For instance, Telangana is very soon, maybe in a matter of 6 to 8 months from now, going to become the first Indian state where every household will be connected with optic fiber cable, and therefore will be internet ready. We also have means or programs through which we are providing solutions to the most common citizen of Telangana, which are technology enabled, but which address their pain points. In fact, our Chief Minister and Minister, if the Minister were here today and if he was to speak, he would have surely mentioned this, that in our eyes, in the eyes of our leaders, no technology is worth it if it doesn't address the most pressing problems of the common citizens. So we have this very ambitious program called Digital Telangana, which you see on the screen. And in spheres like, let us say, agriculture, in healthcare, in education, in mobility, in government services, G2C services, we have rolled out multiple programs, each of which is targeted at helping the common citizen alleviate some of his challenges, some of the commonest pain points that he or she encounters. So there's a very good buy-in in the state at the grassroots level also about technology. And tomorrow, if we are able to identify startups which have good solutions to create a large social impact, the uptake of these kind of solutions will be very, very high. In fact, in our startup and innovation policy, we ourselves have promised that if there is a solution which is of relevance to the government, which has been created by a homegrown startup, then the government promises to be the first customer for that startup. As all of us would know, finding or acquiring the first customer is typically one of the biggest challenges for a startup, even more than getting funding, for instance. And in Telangana, we are perhaps the only state in the country today to give this guarantee, to give this assurance that if you have a solution which is of relevance to us, I will be your first customer. And again, I'm very proud to share with you that in the last 7 years or so, more than 50 such startup solutions have been onboarded in Telangana. And because we have given them their first work order, many other doors have got open for them subsequently based on the strength of their solution. So plug and play, I'm sure, will have a very, very fruitful, a very thriving journey here in Hyderabad. We look forward. I mean, we are, I don't know if this is going to be your office eventually or not, but in many ways, we are occupying the space that you are meant to occupy. We are waiting for the day when all of you will be able to come over to Hyderabad, physically populate this space, open the doors for startups, run some very, very exciting programs, collaborate with the rest of the innovation ecosystem partners, and we'll rejoice with your decision to really make your India entry through Hyderabad, and we'll feel very, very proud of your success. So very grateful to all of you, Saeed, Sasha, Soban and Hana and rest of your colleagues for reposing this faith on us, and hope to see you sometime soon here in Hyderabad. Thank you very much. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank everybody. Hannah, yeah, you're going to say something.
I just wanted to say thank you for this really nice welcoming words from all our team, from Saeed, from Sopan, Sasha, Amir, Jordan, Anton, and the rest of the team. And we feel really warm welcome in India and actually really excited about everything what's coming on the startup side, on the collaboration side. So thank you so much for hosting this event with us today. And with this, Amar, I think we're going
Yeah.
to the final.
Well, I was going to thank all the participants. We were going to do a physical event and make sure that whoever comes here has some skin in the game. So they collaborate on this great platform that we are building and build some exciting startups for the future. That was the idea. But I think this is a great start. You know, we introduced what we are, what is there for the future. So for all the people who are there on the call, you know, we would like you to be plugged in. We're going to do a physical premiere event, maybe sometime in Jan, Feb, whenever the, you know, fears of the 4th, 5th, 6th, or whatever wave, you know, are behind us. I think we'll do a physical event. Then we will convene. We'll get you from Germany and from US, from France, you know, from all over the world. You know, we can do a really good event. We'll take it from there. And special thanks to our anchor partners here. Again, the two women here in the hall, Mamata and Vandana. Thank you again. And thank you, sir. And we also have our Director Automotive here, Gopal, who is going to be fostering the first vertical that we are supporting, the mobility. Slowly, we are going to expand into other verticals, but I think mobility is our focus now, and we're going to be focused on that for some time before we latch on to BFSI, IoT, technology, energy, and so on. So thanks, Gopal, for being here, and thank you everyone who is out there. I'm sure I'm not able to. I wouldn't be able to go through the list of 50, 60 people who joined the call, but thank you very much. Antoine, yeah, I don't want to forget him. He's been a great source of help. Did I forget anyone, Hannah, from your side, our side? I'm sure we did, but thank you all. Um,
The team, of course,
yeah.
but you mentioned the most important ones. And a big thank you as well for the team on your side, on the operational side, setting up the whole room, cameras, sound, getting everything run smooth today. So big thank you for actually managing it from far away. So it was a nice collaboration.
Thank
And
you.
next year in person, hopefully, if
Yeah.
everything works out.
Good night, good evening, good morning, whatever, guys over there around the globe. Bye.
Bye.